Hey guys, in this video I'm going to walk you through how you can play GoldenEye on the computer using a mouse and a keyboard at 60 frames per second, as well as how you can play custom missions or other custom content like golden knives. You will need a functional GoldenEye ROM to play GoldenEye, and while I can't share details on that here, outside of that I'll be able to show you most of the other steps, from setting up the emulator to configuration steps and things that you need to do in order to play custom content. So with that, let's start with the emulator setup. For the emulator, I recommend the 1964 GEPD Emulator. The configuration for this emulator is very much tailored to GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, and it runs great for both of those games. For other Nintendo 64 games, you may need to stick with RetroArch or other emulators, as 1964 may not be able to support those well, since it was very much tailored to GoldenEye and Perfect Dark. To download the 1964 emulator, click on the GitHub URL in the description below, which is going to take you to a page that looks what you see on the screen here. There's 3 versions to pick from. I'm using the standard edition here, so to download it, you just need to click on that zip file, which should automatically start a download on your browser. At this point, you may get an alert that the file publisher is unknown, but once you proceed through that prompt, it should start the download and save the zip file to your downloads folder or whatever your default downloads location is. Once you do the download, open up your zip file and then click into the folder called 1964. From here, select the option Extract All and move this to a convenient location on your computer. Alternatively, you can manually drag those file contents to your location of choice. This folder is basically going to contain the executable file that you're going to use to open up the emulator, so you just want to make sure you remember where you put it, and then eventually you can set up a shortcut. Now, to open up the emulator for the first time, you're going to need to navigate to that new folder you just extracted, and then click on the 1964 executable file to open up the emulator. When you click on that executable file for the first time, you might get a Windows protection alert here, but again, once you proceed through it, this should bring you to the emulator main screen and prompt you to pick a video plugin. The recommendations here are fairly self-explanatory. Glide N64 is recommended for accurate high-end PCs, but for lower-end PCs, you might be better off picking Jabal. I haven't tried Jabal myself, but I've been quite happy with how the Glide N64 has performed for me. Some tweaks to make to your config early on would be under plugins and video settings. Here you can tweak your full screen resolution. So I'm using a 4K monitor. I've brought that up to 4K, and then I've selected 16:9 as that's what I think fits my 4K monitor better. Tweak these other settings here on the right to the max, but you'll need to experiment here based on your specific configurations, your computer. As running some of these settings on too high has been reported to cause lag, so you're just going to need to do a little bit of experimentation at the beginning. The one thing I strongly recommend you don't change and that you leave on the default setting is the gamma setting, which is under the emulation settings. I tried to tweak this because I felt there were some levels that played a little bit dark, but the moment I tweaked this in any way, shape, or form, immediately gave me a really noticeable lag. But the moment I went back to the default setting, it was back to smooth performance. So I think that was definitely my culprit there, and I haven't touched it since. So just a word of caution on that one. The other important setting to note here is internal resolution. I've been using output resolution or a multiple of N64 resolution of 12x. Both have worked well for me, but again, you want to pick this based on your screen and your specific render resolution. Most N64 games used to render internally at 320 x 240 pixels, so what a multiplier of 16x would do here is effectively render that up to 5120 x 3840, which could be overkill in a lot of cases. To tweak your controls, you can do this under plugins in the input settings menu. In addition to keys, you can tweak mouse sensitivity, expand field of view, amongst other things. One important thing to note here is the mouse injection key, which by default will be set to 4. So that means that to activate mouse and keyboard mode when you're in the game, you would need to hit 4. Now, once you're done with the config, you can play the base game using a mouse and a keyboard by going to the emulator, clicking File, and then picking your GoldenEye ROM file to open up the game. Now let's talk about how you go about playing a custom mission. The process to play a custom mission essentially involves using an application called the GoldenEye Editor, which you can get from the Nintendo 64 vault that I've linked to below. I've included a URL to the specific GitHub page, which contains the latest version, which as of the time of this video is 4.3. The process to download and install this is very much the same thing you did earlier with the emulator setup. You're just going to click on the installer for 4.3 and then follow the installation prompts that it gives you. Once you follow all of the installation prompts, all that is left to do in order to play a custom mission is download what's called an XDELTA file for the custom mission or mod that you want to play. So we're just going to walk through that here with an example. Let's say you want to play Soviet Factory, which is a custom level that was released fairly recently and actually one that I enjoyed quite a lot. So most of these custom missions, like the Soviet Factory, are available in the Nintendo 64 Vault website. Usually I include a link to this in my playthrough videos, and there's a whole section here dedicated to custom levels and custom campaigns. Pages all look fairly similar, and most of them are going to have a downloadable zip file URL, which you can download by clicking on it. Now let's say we're in the Soviet Factory page. Once we download the zip file, we're going to see an XDELTA file when we open up the downloaded zip file. You're going to want to extract the XDELTA file to a location where it's easy to find. I usually keep these in a folder called XDELTA, just in close proximity to all my other emulation stuff for ease of access. Now once you've extracted your XDELTA file, open up the GoldenEye editor and click on Tools, XDELTA Patching, and then select the option to apply a GoldenEye XDELTA patch. There's going to be a window that pops up and asks you to select your original GoldenEye ROM. Once you select the ROM, the next pop-up window will ask you to select the XDELTA file, which in this case is the Soviet Factory XDELTA file we just downloaded and extracted. And then the third and last prompt will just be asking you to save a new file. Now this new file you're saving is technically a modified ROM file, which you can call whatever you want, but just make sure that the file name ends in .z64. I also suggest you do not overwrite your original ROM file, otherwise you would lose that original file, and that's going to lead to other issues down the road, potentially impact your ability to patch other custom missions. But once this is done, head back to the emulator, open up the new file you just created, and then you should see the new mission appear somewhere in your mission selection menu. And that's pretty much the same process for a lot of these challenge mods and things that you're going to find on the N64 Vault. A lot of the times the custom missions are built on top of an existing mission. So let's say you're playing one that's built on top of Bunker. Chances are you're going to see the new custom mission appear either under Bunker 1 or Bunker 2. So usually it'll be pretty obvious if they, a lot of the times they update the custom imagery you see here. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you found the tutorial useful. If you have any questions, please comment below. Cheers.